You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
This is Chip Gilchrist, voice of the Kingston Frontenacs. You're listening to OHL Overtime, an in-depth interview show highlighting the players, coaches, and broadcasters from around the Ontario Hockey League who make the league so great, as well as in-person coverage of events such as the OHL Playoffs, OHL Championship Series, OHL Combine, and more, exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Here's your program host, Brandon Caputo.
And welcome back to another episode of OHL Overtime right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you those that are tuned in on our video version on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell to stay updated with all of our video coverage here on the network. And to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform, thank you very much for doing so. You can give us a follow on X at Armchair GM Pod, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. As always, we're here for another correspondent check-in on November 13th is when this comes out. So we're getting there. We're almost quarter way through the season. Can't even really believe it, but we're going to chat about two intriguing teams so far in the Western Conference. We're going to hear a little bit later about the Soo Greyhounds, but in the first segment today, as you can see on the video version, I'm very pleased to be joined today by the color commentator on RTV Grey County and the host of the Bear Tracker podcast. That'd be the one and only JC Coutts. JC, thanks so much for coming on today. And again, Owen Sound has been an intriguing team so far, so really looking forward to hearing your insight on what's going on over there.
Thanks, Brandon. Great to be here. This already looks way better than my podcast, so this is awesome. I am making notes about what to steal as soon as we're done. I'm going to start implementing some of this right away.
I'm flattered by that. Hey, we're all in this together in our own way here in the media world. But yeah, as far as anything you want to plug before we go ahead, JC, I know the Bear Tracker podcast. Where can people find that, and how often does it come out?
We typically publish every Sunday evening, usually after the slate of weekend games are done, which you can find it wherever you get your podcasts. There's a YouTube version as well, so there's audio and video of the podcast. And we're in season number 2 now with weekly releases. It's a lot of fun. Our next episode actually is going to come out a little bit early this week with I've got Max DeLille talking about his gold medal win. I've got the newest member of the Owen Sound attack, Caden Taylor, to learn more about him. Plus our good friend Adrian Musso for another Moose on the Loose segment. So we're talking about the upcoming CHL Top Prospects Challenge. So it's going to be a good episode out early for attack fans this week.
Great stuff. So as we talk about the Owen Sound attack, comparatively to what they were last season as a team that snuck into the playoffs in the Western Conference as that eighth and final playoff team, and then had to go up against the juggernaut London Knights. Never a fun thing, but seemed like they learned a lot from what last season was under that new coaching staff there under Scott Wray and Brandon Shaw, and just to name a few. But now sitting first place in the Midwest Division with the likes of Kitchener and London. I know that the Owen Sound attack were expecting to rise up the boards this year, but for somebody that's around the team, covering the team, did you even expect them to be, second place in the Western Conference as of now?
No, I'll be honest. I don't think any of us did. I think that with the amount of turnover that happened with players between last season and this season, it was honestly hard to really predict anything. I feel like most of us in the local media kind of felt that a home playoff situation, finishing top 4, was something that was achievable. But to get off to the start they got, to see immediate contribution from the new guys. I mean, typically when you turn over 10 or 11 players, I think it was 11 players they turned over from last year's roster, that takes some time to get going. Like it takes time to build chemistry, especially new guys coming in from the USHL backgrounds, some coming in from junior A backgrounds in Western Canada. Like it really was a mishmash of new faces with different backgrounds, but somehow they all clicked. And I think that's part of what general manager Dale DeGray is considering when he goes out to acquire new players is whether or not they're going to fit in with what the coaching staff is trying to bring to the table, which is a blue collar mentality. Everybody works hard, next man up mentality. You're going to work hard on the power play, work hard on the penalty kill. You're going to have that feeling of never being out of a game. So you're looking for guys that fit that mold. Plus, you're looking for guys that are just generally good people around the room. And I think that you can give him full marks. I think the guys that he found, identified, and brought in all met that, and that's why they had success so early. And as time has gone on and they face certain challenges, including a lot of injuries as of late, they continue to perform well. So it's been a fun thing to watch, to have a competitive team, and one that seems like it's destined to finish probably for their best finish. I'm going to say probably in the last 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at sort of their last stretch of games there, I know that 4-game losing streak, but they bounced back from it, winning 3 in a row. A hard fought game against London, and then the big win in Oshawa, again, not just because of it being the Oshawa Generals and sort of going through a rebuild year this year, but for guys like Tristan Delisle and David Bedkowski, 2 guys that were former Oshawa Generals, going back there and being able to come away with the victory and the way that they did, scoring 4 goals in the second period. It just seems like this team has a lot of confidence and swagger that maybe people hadn't expected, and it seems like they're really gelling as a group, as a unit. And we knew under a guy like Scott Wray, with all the success he had with the North Bay Battalion under Ryan Houlihan, that it was going to take some time, but it was going to come to fruition. So you sort of see the plan and the identity of what this attack team wants to play this season.
Yeah, it's pretty evident every time they step on the ice. They're really proving that this system, they have totally bought into it right up and down the lineup. And it's amazing to watch because it started last year with a lot of rookies in the lineup. And the one thing that we really noticed was that even if you go out and you make a mistake, you're out the next shift. You're not getting benched, or you don't have to worry about that. It's as Scott has said many times, this is a development league, and we're going to give everybody time to develop and grow and become something. And I think that was huge last year, especially for a lot of rookies in the lineup, including Mbuyi, who ended up winning the OHL Rookie of the Year. It was just that longer leash to go out and feel like it's okay to make a mistake, because you won't miss another shift after that. So I think that's really helped with the mentality of the players. It's certainly a much different approach and message in the room than it was the previous year before Scott and Brandon Shaw and Regan O'Grady had arrived. Like, they've really taken over the town. And I mean taking over the town, like they all bought houses in Owen Sound this year for the first time. And I can't even tell you how long. They actually ran hockey camps during winter and summer breaks. Like, they're fully committed to the community, which has gone over huge because, Owen Sound's the smallest market in the OHL. Everybody in the community, if it's a sold-out Bayshore, that means 1 in 10 people that live in Owen Sound are at the game. So great opportunity, I guess, if you're robbing houses, because they're probably at the attack game. But it's such to see people that are involved in the community really reflects well, and it reflects on the players. Like just today, players were at a school visiting kids just outside of Markdale, and that's a regular occurrence. They're always going into the schools and engaging in the community, and all of that, I think, helps equal success on the ice. And it's a really cool kind of an atmosphere that this coaching staff has created.
And you mentioned there Mbuyi, Rookie of the Year last season, draft year this year for the National Hockey League. Like, do you see, as great as he was in his rookie season, do you see, the evolution of him in his second year and sort of the confidence leading the team in points? Just seems like a very good guy off the ice as well for the team chemistry side of things. Like, what do you see from Mbuyi that maybe just some of us that don't get to watch him on a daily basis or be around him that's makes him so special?
Well, the one thing last year that we noticed about him, I mean, he's not the biggest guy on the ice, and he got hit hard a lot last year. Then you got worried, but he normally would bounce back right away. Last year ended up being a genius move to put him on a line with Landon Hookie, who was the captain last season. Has since gone on to play. He's playing now with the Belleville Senators in the AHL. So, I mean, that was just a genius move on the part of the coaching staff to give him a bit of protection. This year, they've kind of put different line mates with him, trying to add more size to the lineup as they've done. And it seems like if he feels as though he can go out there and do more, he will. I think, as with any small skilled player, you do need to know that someone's got your back. This year, the assignment's been changing up. As of late, it's been Harry Nancy. And those two, oh man, have they been dynamite on the ice together. I'm not sure if they're going to stick together now with Caden Taylor coming into the lineup, but it's just it's really fun to watch him grow. And I think he's grown literally a little bit over the summer. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit beefier. And with that skill, I mean, if he continues to go at the pace he's at now, he's just going to move up and up that NHL draft order. And some team is going to get a really special player in Pierce Mbuyi.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Such a fun player to watch, and even if you don't get to tune into Owen Sound Attack games, he's definitely a guy that you want to tune in to and watch more times than not. You mentioned there with Caden Taylor, and that was the big trade earlier this week. I know at the time of recording this, you had actually gone and spoke with Caden Taylor earlier today down at the rink. So, this is a guy that had a lot of promise, was a first round talent from the Sudbury Wolves, got traded to Peterborough, and now the Owen Sound Attack pick him up for a 3rd round pick and a conditional 6th round pick. So seems like a very low risk, high reward type of move for Dale DeGray to be able to go out and get a guy like Caden Taylor. What's sort of the vibe right now bringing in a guy like him?
Well, I think to Dale's credit, he's had a lot of luck in the last few years of, for lack of a better term, finding these reclamation projects of guys who maybe had played down a little bit with teams they're with, or guys that needed a fresh start. And he just has an eye for those types of players that are going to be able to come into the system and thrive and adapt and uh, be more part of the team. And I think what we're seeing here with Caden Taylor, I mean, it's just been 2 practices now that he's worked out with the team. But getting a sense of talking to the guys today after they came off the ice, they're really happy to have him. He has familiarity with a number of players, including Pierce Mbuyi and Jake Crawford, and quite a few other players on the team. It sounded like he mentioned he's been lining up with Harry Nancy and Noah Nelson. Don't know if that's who he's going to line up with Friday night in London when they play their first game together, but that's going to be a big, exciting line to watch if that is the case. But just talking to him about, what happened in Peterborough, it sounds like it became a situation of both sides, I think, needed a change. And, you never like to see it, but Dale's been on both sides of the equation, including with some recent players that just said, hey, I need a change, whether it's I want to be closer to home or whether it's, I'm not finding the role that I want here. Is there a possibility you can send me somewhere where I'll get that thing that I'm looking for? And I think it's the same for Caden Taylor. I think he just didn't quite fit into what Peterborough wanted him to be. And now he's got a chance to be that with the Owen Sound Attack. So I think it's exciting, especially when you look at some of the numbers that he's put up in the past, and his U16 numbers were unbelievable. So 121 points in 60 games, 58 goals, like just crazy numbers. So if he can rediscover that part of his game, and with a lot of skilled players around him, I think it's probably a safe bet for Dale. A 3rd round pick and a conditional 5th, not a lot when you consider what the price was to get Wesley Royston. It was Michael Deck. So to not have to give up anybody on your current roster and add somebody that is potentially a great power forward, I think that's just a big win for the Owen Sound Attack.
Yeah, and you're trying to fit him in. I've got the last lineup for the Attack up on the screen, and now adding Caden Taylor into that, as you mentioned, sort of what maybe the lineup combinations could look like going into tonight's game. But it definitely is something that I think Scott Wray is going to welcome adding to his lineup card for sure, especially with Mason Ray being out long term. That was an unfortunate injury for him, but the attack and going down into the defensive side, and even the goaltending, which I think is something that a lot of people talk about with Owen Sound. They've got very solid goaltending there. A lot of guys that are capable of doing the job. With Carter George obviously being an LA Kings second round pick, and a lot of high hopes for him in the pro ranks. But Tristan Bennett has been just as solid in the net as well. So what are you thinking of this sort of 2 to 3 headed monster that the Owen Sound attack have in net, and a rag of riches, I guess you could say, in between the pipes?
I mean, it's a good problem to have. The coaching staff is certainly happy to have the problem, but at the same time, it becomes an issue of who do you start and when. With Carter George, I know one of the things that they were concerned with him last year is that he played too much, and they know that because Carter himself mentioned that. It was finding a way to help reduce Carter's workload a little bit, especially. I mean, he's thinking about December and thinking about the World Juniors. He's going to likely be a lock to be Canada's goaltender again at the World Juniors. So giving him a little bit more of a chance to rest in between starts is a good thing. Trent impressed everybody last year. In the very few starts he had, he looked great. And he played the Kentville 73s in Junior B last season. Ended up getting drafted by the Devils this year. So all of a sudden, you have to have him here at this level. Like he needs to be here. And Matthew Kaprowski, who has shown a lot of promise this year, he started the summer with the Maple Leafs organization at their rookie camp, ended up finishing in St. Louis with the Blues and stayed with them a little longer than anticipated, which is a good thing. But he just has not been able to find his form yet, which is unfortunate because, I mean, he's a great kid. He's got the skills. We've seen him do it before, but in talking with him in the past, it just seems like he's putting a lot of pressure on himself, and understandably so. You're seeing what Carter George is doing. You're arguably behind the best goaltender in Canada right now, and then you've got Trenton Bennett, who has come up and looked great in all of his starts, except for a couple little blemishes this season, namely the school day game in Sarnia last week. But other than that, now you're trying to elevate your play to match two other guys and also try to work your way into that when possible. And that's a lot of pressure for a young guy. So I can kind of see why he's in the position he's in. I keep my fingers crossed. He's going to get another start here as soon as possible to show what he can do. But it's been tough. And it sounds like the coaching staff is trying to give Carter George 2 out of every 3 starts now. I don't know if that's going to stick, but Carter is going to get the majority of the workload. Bennett's going to have to make appearances, but it will be Bennett and Kaprowski as soon as we lose Carter, which is probably going to be for 3 or 4 weeks, if not more, for World Camp. So Kaprowski's role is about to get expanded. He's just working on a few things in the meantime, and hopefully he bounces back bigger than ever. And then, unfortunately for the attack, they're going to January towards the trade deadline, and they're going to have real big decisions to make. But at this point, would love to see Matthew get back into the game, and the other 2 guys seem to be rolling really well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point that, to have those other 2 guys rolling, because Carter George is going to be leaving for 3 or 4 weeks for the Hockey Canada camp for the World Juniors. To have that organizational depth for a team like Owen Sound right now that's sitting second in the conference, I think is definitely important. And again, as you mentioned, trade deadline, you never know what can happen. But I think Owen Sound, definitely a good problem to have. But again, a decision might have to be made at some point. But before we let you go, JC, being a Sabres guy, and we have a Sabres show as well on this network, I have to ask you about David Bedkowski, not just because he's a Sabres draft pick, but because he's the captain of the Owen Sound attack. Went away to the Sabres development camp, learned a lot there, spoke to him there. Seemed like he was so excited to get back to Owen Sound, and for good reason. They put the C on his chest. So what have you seen from him as a leader? Again, not a guy that's going to put up the most points, but a big presence on the ice as a 6'6", defenseman. But how do you think he's molded into that captaincy role? And how have you liked this game so far this season?
Well, I mean, he's a great, he's a born leader. We all knew last season, heading towards the end of the season, obviously Landon Hookie was an overager and was going to move on. So we started murmuring with each other, like, who do you think is going to be the next captain? And all across the board, everybody said David Bedkowski. Like, he just carries himself that way. And on the ice, I mean, he is huge. He can put guys through the boards if he wants to. He sees the ice really well. He, as a captain, he's very quick to jump up and protect his players. He's not afraid to drop the gloves. He's as tough as they come. I think the only knock on him would be, occasionally he takes too many penalties, and it's usually in defense of a teammate or trying to get the team fired up. So he's very quickly kind of discovering that fine line between, okay, I need to be a captain and a leader, but I also got to stay out of the box because they need me as well for my defensive abilities. So he's trying to figure out how to bring that balance to his game. But he is the real deal. We're going to see him patrolling an NHL blue line for a long, long time after his junior hockey career is done. He's got a big heart for sure. He knows how to have fun. I'm sure we all saw the viral clip of the team at the indoor driving range in North Bay, when he lost the club and it flew into the kitchen. I mean, he'll be the first to laugh about that and tell you how much fun it was. And that's just who you want as a captain. You want a guy that can laugh at themselves, but can also, play a great physical game on the ice. So he's a complete player, and we're lucky that we have him as a captain. And I think he's a great leader for a blue line that's got a lot of skill on it, which I think also takes the pressure off him a little bit, as we've got skilled guys like Jonathan Banks who can run the power play now, and David can focus more on a shutdown role and on using that big physical body to move guys as opposed to having to lead rushes. So I think that's really helped as he figures out how to properly balance his game.
And yeah, it's sort of, JC, as we wrap up, like, it sort of seems like Owen Sound has gone through, the great cycle of junior hockey, right? You make the tough decision to trade Colby Barlow, who's a long-time Owen Sound attack, but you look at the pieces that came back, and David Bedkowski, DeLille as well. Like, you look at sort of how that has worked out for Owen Sound, and now they're coming out on the other side of it and being a competitive team. So when you make those tough decisions, and Dale DeGray has made, the tough decisions when he needs to in the past. So with a trade like that, and how it's sort of been working out for the organization now, like, I guess, would that just be, how it works out in your favor down the road when you make a tough deal like that?
Yeah, Dale's seemed to have out on the better end of a lot of those deals he's had to make as of late. I mean, that Barlow deal, you could have given me one of those guys and I would have been happy, but we got two of them back in that deal, which has been incredible. And then trades like, the year before, acquiring Sam McHugh and Connor Smith at the deadline from Peterborough, who ended up being great. And then you're able to flip McHugh and pick up Cole Zurawski. Like,
Yep.
It really is. If you're a general manager, it's a chess game, and trying to figure out how all these pieces fit and how to best move them. And now you factor in the NCAA thing, which pretty much, if you're a general manager that goes by your plans, that's out the window, because now, as Dale has said, it's kind of a year-to-year plan that he almost has to operate with now, because you never know if you're going to lose somebody to NCAA or how long they're possibly going to stay, and whether or not you can build around one talented young guy. So the whole dynamic has changed. And I feel that when it comes to general managers that are quickly adapting to what is now the new reality of major junior hockey, he's one of the guys that gets it. He sees it really well. He's a great judge of character. I hope he never retires or wants to leave, because we will lose a lot if we lose Dale DeGray. So he's one of the best people to talk to. He's an open book. He does every year. Dale and Scott, actually probably twice a year, they do meetings with the fans. So right before a game, they'll open up a room in the Bayshore. They can ask any questions. Dale will answer all of them as honestly as he possibly can. And that's just something great to have, that kind of open transparency from management, because you don't get that with every team. But with the Owen Sound attack, even if you walk up to Dale in the stands when he's watching warmups, you can talk to him if you're a fan, and he will answer questions, and you can give him the gears a little bit too if there's something that's bothering you, and he will listen. So I mean, he's just that kind of a guy, and it's just the right kind of guy to be running a team in a market like this.
Yeah, it's definitely one of a kind in the OHL and all the CHL as well. So when you look at the Owen Sound attack, and I usually ask every correspondent that comes on a player to watch, but I think it's probably going to be Caden Taylor would be your guy that you need to watch here in the next month or two as we see him make his Owen Sound attack debut tonight, most likely.
I mean, that is no doubt the most new intrigue we have, and seeing what's going to come out of him. Up to this point, it's been a lot of fun to watch Nick Sikora play. He's been very entertaining. Max DeLille now with that new goal that he just won at the U17s. I think now he's probably going to see a little bit of a resurgence from him now that he's back from that tournament. He'll be interesting to watch. Wesley Royston has the first game didn't go so well as he tried to figure things out. Plus, he was also playing his old team in his first game, but he's had goals in games since. So again, watching these new pieces fit in with the other pieces, it's been a lot of fun. And this is a team that all four lines can beat you. You have no idea where the goal scoring is going to come from. Last year, we had no idea where the goals were going to come from, period. This year, we don't know which line's going to score, but one of them is. And it's a really fun, exciting team to watch. I would call them a young team, but with the acquisition of Caden Taylor, we found out today that Owen Sound now has the most OHL games played of any team in the league, but they're still about middle of the pack, about 10th when it comes to average age. And it should be noted, too, as Greg Cowan noted in the Owen Sound sometimes, that previous teams that have had most games of experience have normally gone on to win championships. So I'm not saying that guarantees anything. I'm just saying it makes it pretty fun to watch the rest of the way this year.
Definitely an interesting stat. And again, we'll see how the Owen Sound attack fare out the rest of the season. But great start, first place in the Midwest division, but amazing stuff there. JC Coutts, the color commentator for the Owen Sound attack games on RTV Grey County, and as well the host of the Bear Tracker podcast every single week. JC, thanks so much for the great analysis of the attack, and look forward to seeing where they shape out the next time we have you on later on in the season.
Thanks so much for having me on, Brandon, and we'll have you on mine as well. I'll return the favor the next time we've got the Ice Dogs around. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I got to get up to get some of those Owen Sound fries, the best in the league by far, and it's not even close. And I think about them a lot, but thankfully I'm not there a lot, because then I'd be it wouldn't be good for my health. But regardless of that, great stuff there as always. JC Coutts here talking Owen Sound attack in the first segment. We'll be right back talking some Soo Greyhounds in the second part of today's show, right here on OHL Overtime on the Armchair GM Sports Network. We'll be right back after this.
Butt ends are hockey stick grips, specifically for the top of the stick, designed to replace traditional clock tape. They're made of rubber and offer a more consistent and comfortable grip than tape, aiming to improve performance and reduce slippage. Butt ends are an alternative to regular stick tape that provide enhanced grip and comfort, are durable, reusable, and consistent, with the ability to reduce vibration. The grips are available in a variety of styles, designs, colors, and even have options for specific player names. At Butt Ends, they are committed to providing the world's highest quality stick grips and continue to bring new technology and ideas with each new grip design, regardless of sport. Alex Petrangelo, Akil Thomas, Max Domi, Aiden Hill, and Tim Stutzla are just a name of few who have proudly used Butt Ends for peak performance at the NHL level. Check them out at buttendswithaz.com and use our referral code buttends.com/discount/armchairgm to get 10% off your order as part of our community. Engineered for greatness and performance. Butt Ends, the #1 grip in hockey.
Fourth Wall is the official merchandise supplier of the Armchair GM Sports Network. Our user-friendly site is print to order with no minimum items or inventory needed, shipped right to your doorstep safely and efficiently from their North American warehouse. All of our logos are available to supporters, listeners, and viewers can have the best variety available to them for their swag preferences. All items are priced as low as possible, allowing everybody who wants to support our business with the opportunity to do so, receiving quality and comfortable products in return. Shop today at fourthwall.com with the direct link to our Armchair merch store in the description of all episodes and in the bio of all of our social media accounts. Become an Armchair GM today with Fourth Wall.
Hi, this is Larry Millett, and you're listening to OHL Overtime.
And welcome back to part 2 of today's OHL Overtime correspondent check-in episode right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to JC Coutts, color commentator for the Owen Sound attack on RTV Grey County, for some great insight on the attack in the first part of today's show. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Armchair GM Pod, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for all of our short reels and content. Thank you to those that are tuned in on our video version today on YouTube. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to those that are tuned in on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Brady Caputo back with you, and I'm pleased to be joined by another great guest correspondent today, and that would be a sports reporter for the Soo today, covering the Soo Greyhounds. That would be Brad Coccimiglio. Brad, thanks so much for being able to come on today and give us some great insight. Hopefully not too much snow up there right now in Sault Ste. Marie with what we got down here in the Niagara region, but thanks for doing this tonight.
Yeah, totally. Happy to jump on. I'm glad, like I was saying, kind of off air. I'm glad you're doing this. It's nice to have stuff like this going on around the league, and thankfully we haven't got dumped on with snow like we did last November yet. So fingers crossed we get through the month of November without a big dumping up here for sure.
Yeah, hopefully for your guys' sake. I know it can be quite the winter up there with the Soo Greyhounds. So again, the Soo Greyhounds are a team that for many reasons are not just what happened last weekend with the Barrie Coutts, which we're not really going to get into with that situation, but they're an intriguing team so far this year, Brad. And when you look at where they are, second place in the West Division, Windsor Spitfires are classes of the Western Conference right now, and they're trailing them. But what have you thought so far of Soo's start, and a team that was 7th place in the West last year, and looks like they have higher hopes than that, especially with Brady Martin being able to come back from Nashville.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is a team that I think a lot of people, myself included, expected them to take a step this year with a big returning class. That included, like you said, a guy like Brady Martin. That I'm not surprised that he had stuck with Nashville. Maybe a little surprised that he didn't stick up maybe a little longer and get that kind of full 9 games, but. A team that the expectations kind of grew early. In an interesting case in the West Division, just that, everyone knew coming into the year that Windsor was going to be really good and probably going to be, not only the best team in the division, but potentially the best team in the conference. And, we're at a point right now where, this is a group that's, kind of in an interesting position because they're, in a mix that includes, Owen Sound, Kitchener, London, Flint's very tight in there. Guelph's not far back. Like there's a lot of teams kind of hovering at that, 9, 10, 11 win mark at this point. So, they're in an interesting position. I feel like this team's got a lot of high hopes. Talking to Kyle Raftis, talking to John Dean, the players, all have this real high expectation for themselves. And, they're going into an interesting stretch here with, some games coming up against against the Windsors, against the Londons. So really get a good idea of where this team kind of stands at this point. But they've certainly, when this team's playing well, they've certainly been a lot of fun to watch at this point. So definitely been an interesting team, and a lot of kind of interesting storylines with them going forward here.
Yeah, and you look at their last 10 again, a 2-game losing streak, 3-game winning streak, 2-game losing streak, and then that win against the Barrie Coutts that was widely talked about around junior hockey the last weekend. But when you look at this Soo team, Brad, and your years of covering the Greyhounds and things like that, and when you look at where they are sort of in their cycle and how junior hockey has changed with the NCAA agreement and players being able to come and go a lot more frequent than they would in past years, like as far as Soo's ability to attract players and the ability to get players to commit, get players to sign, those U.S. players as well. Like, how has the dynamic been so far this year for Kyle Raftis, as you mentioned, the general manager, and John Dean, being able to manage some of those new players coming in that they wouldn't have had, and sort of what the dynamic of this team and sort of, I guess, the identity of them this season?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, they're in an interesting position because they're they've got a seemingly a good reputation around among players. A lot of guys have come into this city over the last 8-10 years, give or take, since Kyle Raftis and preceding him, Kyle Dubas as general manager. They've really put themselves in a good position in terms of the way they treat players, and players have kind of wanted to come here. And I think we're seeing that with with the whole NCAA situation. A kid like Colin Crossbury hasn't played yet this year since the preseason due to an injury, but he's getting really close to getting back. He's Michigan State commit, a real high end defenseman that they took in the second round of the 2024 draft. And I remember at the time Kyle Raftis talking about him as a guy that, had he not had the NCAA commitment at that point, probably would have been a first round pick somewhere, and maybe in the upper half of the first round. And they get him pretty deep in that draft because of that. And then the rule changes last fall, and now you're getting a guy like him in the lineup this year that they expect to have as an impact as an 08. Chase, or he's a Boston guy. I'm thinking Chase Reed is the other guy who's the Michigan State guy. I was getting a little ahead of myself, but Chase Reed's another one that they take him deep in the draft. And he's a kid that he came in. I don't think anyone would have anticipated him being a point a game guy, last year, but he came in and, put up real big numbers early on. And, he's a guy that's playing nearly 30 minutes a night right now. Getting Crossbury back, is going to be a big help to that. Crossbury's gonna take probably a few of those minutes off, and it's kind of interesting to kind of think of it in the sense that a kid coming in as an 08 birth year in Crossbury, it's interesting to kind of think of those guys as guys are going to eat up minutes, but an elite player who Crossbury was a guy who was an elite player and had that commitment to go down to Boston. Again, if that NCAA rule doesn't change, I don't know necessarily that he ends up here for sure. But that's good on Kyle Raftis for building this program and building this team to into one that guys like Crossbury, guys like Reed, who have these high commitments to, or these big commitments to high end programs like the Boston universities and the Boston colleges and the Michigan States. They're going to get these guys. Another interesting guy is Quinn McKenzie, rather. A kid who came into camp as a free agent as a commitment to, I believe it's Penn State, and he's another guy that comes in as as an NCAA guy that has played well for them and given them some depth up front. So Chase Reed's been a lot of fun to watch. Crossbury, I feel like, is going to be a lot of fun to watch as well when he gets healthy here. But definitely taking full advantage of the ability to to have a good relationship and treat your players really well. And when you do that, stuff like this is going to happen. You're going to get these higher end guys that are going to be willing to commit to your program.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Soo has some high end guys that are committed to NCAA programs. So we'll see how that goes fares for them going forward into future years, because we really don't even know the full landscape of how this is going to go for another 2 or 3 years. So everybody's going through it for the first time this season. But you mentioned Chase Reed, and I want to stop there, Brad, because a guy that's going to be at the CHL USA Prospects Challenge in Lethbridge and Calgary coming up. A guy that has a lot of eyes on him, leading the team in points as well. A guy that was a 7th round pick just a few years ago in the priority selection. So for a guy that's around Chase Reed, all the time, around the games, around the rink, what is he like on and off the ice? And, what makes him such a great player so far early in his career?
Yeah, off the ice, and I say this about a lot of guys that that have come through the Greyhound program. He's a real good kid. A lot of these guys, they deal with the media pretty regularly, especially up here because there's 3 or 4 of us that cover the team pretty regularly. Real good kid off the ice. He's got he seems to get along really well in the room with that group, and on the ice, I mean, obviously his numbers speak for themselves. He's been a point a game guy basically since the second he set foot on the ice with a Greyhound jersey, and this year it's pretty wild to watch him play because he's a guy. We saw the OHL releasing some average game minutes on ice. There, I believe it was in the last few days, and that this is a kid that's averaging like over 28 minutes a night. He's a top pairing guy. And interesting because again, he came into the years, with 39 games under his belt, and he's on the top pairing with another guy who came into the OHL this year, and Jakob Winkelhofer, who's has been another fun kid to watch on the blue line. So, you've got two, somewhat inexperienced guys on your top D pairing, but they've been playing really well together, and they really complement each other really well. And they've been seeing some power play time together. And in Reed again, with that commitment to Michigan State, you don't necessarily, it's not a guarantee that you get him. And I think maybe that's why he, falls as much as he did in the draft in 2023. Maybe he's a top 4 or 5 round guy, if he doesn't have that commitment. But, again, a kid that stepped in and, he's going to easily top his offensive numbers from last year. And, again, he's a kid that's, working on his all around game to try to make that jump to the next level at some point down the road. But, he's been absolutely, he's a treat to watch, and, a lot of fun to deal with from my perspective is, he's a great kid as well.
Definitely interesting to see where he's going to rise up the rankings on the NHL Central Scouting and where his name could be called in next year's entry draft. Chase Reed, definitely an exceptional player from the back end for the Soo Greyhounds. A couple of trades that Kyle Raftis made earlier, Brad, this season, and just quickly going over them. Obviously, Charlie Hilton got traded to the Oshawa Generals for a 3rd-round pick, which is a nice return there. And then the trade that saved every single broadcaster in the league with the Brady T. Smith being traded to the Flint Firebirds for Jeremy Martin, a pretty significant swap there of 2 guys that had a lot of promise in their draft years coming into the Ontario Hockey League. So what have you thought so far of Martin coming over to Soo, and why you think these 2 trades, were, I guess, needed for Kyle Raftis to make here?
Yeah, maybe dialing back to the Hilton trade, first. I mean, that was a deal. He hadn't played in a little bit. He had gone back home. He's from the Oshawa area, and he'd gone back home for personal reasons. And that was a deal. And I remember Kyle Raftis saying it at the time was, that was a deal that was, wasn't necessarily just a hockey deal. And it's good for him. I mean, Charlie seemed like a great kid, and seemed like he was really well liked around the room. And whatever those reasons were for him wanting to be close to home, I mean, I can respect that, and I'm never gonna harp on a kid for that type of thing, right? I mean, this is some things at the end of the day are just bigger than hockey. And like you said, I mean, the Greyhounds get a good return there where they deal him and a 6th-rounder down the road for a 3rd-rounder that that could be really good. And that 10th-rounder, you never know. I mean, it's the deeper in the draft you go, you never know what teams are going to be able to pull out of the later rounds of the draft. And the Martin Smith deal, like you said, that's that was a nice one, because now I'm broadcasters, reporters, it's been a lot easier not to have to worry which Brady Smith I'm dealing with for when I'm writing my stories now. And first time in a long time that I've had to deal with middle initials and Brady T and Brady R and this, that, and the other thing. This was again, this was a deal where it was you don't see many of the 1-for-1 deals, although we've seen a couple of them this year. You don't usually see very many of them, but this was a deal that I think both teams were looking to maybe get these guys a new opportunity. Brady Smith was part of the Andrew Gibson trade last year.
Yep.
Came in and, we saw flashes of him being a really good player last year. I mean, there were times where you could see that Brady Smith you could see the reason Brady Smith was drafted where he was and the reason he put up the numbers he did in minor hockey. And, just for whatever reason, he's, finding had a tough time kind of putting it all together consistently at the OHL level. And, he's had a couple of good nights in Flint. And, on the other side, I mean, Jeremy Martin's kind of the same thing. His numbers have been consistent and through 2 years and we're consistent through 2 years in Flint, but he's brought a good energy level to the Greyhound roster. He's fit in well. He's scored a couple of timely goals for them, here early on, and seems to be a really good fit and giving them some kind of middle of the lineup depth up front, and he's been a good fit so far, and it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in because like we said earlier, this is a Greyhound team that could conceivably be looking to make some moves to go all in, and this is a guy that they're probably going to rely on to to give them that depth and maybe give them a little bit of scoring deeper in their lineup. So high expectations for him, I think, but again, he's a kid that seems to have brought a lot of good things to the organization here early on.
And then switching gears here, Brad, to the goaltending and Landon Miller, the guy right now. But sort of what's the thought there? And as you mentioned, if the Soo Greyhounds are a team that's looking to add come the trade deadline or even before, because you've seen some significant deals already here in the month of November, like what are you looking at for possibly the back end or the goaltending if John Dean thinks that the team needs some upgrades there?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret. I think, a lot of people, when this team going into the year, a lot of people questioned the goaltending and said that was probably, the Soo Greyhounds' biggest question mark coming into the year. And Landon Miller really struggled at times last year, but, I've always said this about him that Landon is a kid that when he's on, he's extremely good. It's just again like a lot of kids at at this level, he struggles with that consistency sometimes. And, I think we've seen it a little bit this year. His goals against average is obviously, has obviously been pretty solid here early on. You'd like to see that save percentage maybe bump up a little more and him, maybe make some more saves. But again, I look at the league and I've said this to a lot of other people that the interesting thing about the OHL is sometimes you don't always necessarily need the league's best goaltender to win an OHL title. My prime example is always, I look back to the 2017 Erie Otters. They win an OHL title with Troy Timpano as their goaltender, lost in the Memorial Cup final in Windsor that year, and Troy Timpano couldn't get a job as an overage in the league the following year with an OHL title in his pocket. So,
Right.
that's kind of an interesting thing. The Greyhounds have struggled at times defensively. They've been prone to, mistakes in the defensive zone. And I think at times that's maybe led to, the issues in terms of, their goals against being a little higher than they'd like it to be. And, I think if this team shores up kind of the mistake aspect of it in that regard, you probably see Landon Miller's save percentage go up, and you probably even Noah Tegelar as a backup. You probably see those numbers get a little better if that team shores up a little more, on the defensive side with the mistakes for sure.
Anything you want to mention about the power play, because that is one of the things where it looks like that they might want to correct right now, sitting at 14.3%. What do you think is, because they've got the talent up front, but what's just something that
For
they
sure.
need to maybe tighten the bolts on there?
Yeah, and this is a team that they've started making some adjustments of late. They were very much a team where, and I'm sure a lot of fans it's driven a lot of people nuts around here. Where, it was the whole slingshot aspect where a guy skates through the neutral zone, drops it back to a guy with the hope of generating speed through the neutral zone. The Greyhounds were very big on that a lot last year and through the early parts of the year this year. They've gotten away from that a little more in their last handful of games, and they seem to be generating more chances off of it. The Barrie game, they had I mean, they had 2 power play goals in that game, although one was called back, and they ended up scoring on the power play and that power play anyway. And they did, admittedly, like I tracked some of that stuff on my own during the game, and they did generate a lot more what I would say were quality chances on the power play in their last 5 or 6 games. So I think we've seen a bit of a positive there in terms of that. And John Dean seems to be, I don't want to say less worried because that's not necessarily fair to say, but he's more pleased with the power play of late because of the number of chances they're generating. Where there were times before where it was a struggle just them getting kind of set up to generate a chance in the offensive zone on the power play where, now they're getting set up and they're generating those chances. So, I think, there may still be a little bit of tweaking that needs to be done, but, the moves they've made and the adjustments they've made to this point, in the last, like I said, 5 or 6 games, may lead to something here where once this team kind of gets settled into that and gets that figured right out, we're going to see that power play percentage improve. Because let's face it, I mean that's something that going into the second half and going into the playoffs, that's something you really want rolling. I mean, how many coaches will say after a game that special teams won them or lost them a game, and you certainly don't want that happening in the in the stretch run into the playoffs.
So quickly before I move on to some non-current players, is there anybody, Brad, that you want to mention that you think going forward here or as of late that is a guy that fans should watch out for that has been taking strides for Soo?
Yeah, you know what I mean. I've been a bigger fan of Christopher Brown this year. He's a guy that he's a former first round pick. Obviously, a lot of high expectations on him, and he struggled last year. He struggled just to stay healthy and in the lineup regularly. He's a kid that he's been on a line with Jordan Sharon a lot this year, and those two guys have really kind of found an interesting chemistry. Because they're two very, very different players in terms of their style. But Christopher's kind of, found his way a little bit here as an '06 and, has played real well. And, I touched on Jakob Winkelhofer earlier. He's a guy that, came in as an import pick and has been really good, really consistent for them. On the blue line has been a really good fit for Chase Reed as well. And, like I said earlier, the other guy is Croskery when he gets back. I'm going to be interested to see how he fits in because he looked really good during training camp and in the preseason, and definitely interested to see how he's going to fit, and it's going to make that blue line interesting as well because that's a team that's got got a lot of defensemen on the roster right now, so they're gonna it's probably going to force them to maybe have to make a move at some point, but it's a good problem to have if you've got enough higher end guys or guys that can play at this level at at a high a relatively high level. It's gonna make the decisions hard, but put them in a potentially good spot going forward.
And then lastly, I know the Soo Greyhounds have a lot of great history, and we know the Jeff Carter jersey retirement's coming up as well. That's going to be a really cool night there in Soo in November 22nd, having his number 7 race to the rafters. Joe Thornton, as anybody Soo fan watching, can probably see in my backdrop, Joe Thornton's my guy. And I've actually got a Joe Thornton Soo Greyhounds card with a piece of his jersey.
That's awesome.
In it. So really love that. But I know that he just recently got into the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. So, those are two great Soo Greyhounds, and Jeff Carter and Joe Thornton. I don't know if you had any quick thoughts on those guys over the years.
Yeah, you know what I mean. The fun thing is, like for me, Joe Thornton was a guy I remember. Like I'm born and raised in the Sioux, and I was a season ticket holder with my dad for years, so I got to watch Joe Thornton when he was dummying teams around the league. As a draft eligible guy, and interesting for me, Jeff Carter was on one of the early teams that when I first started getting into this business where I was freelancing for Sioux Today and, covering the team a little bit. Jeff Carter was, kind of one of the, on some of those first teams that I really started covering. And, so for me, that's kind of, I don't know. It's showing my like, even though I'm only in my 40s, it's showing. I feel like it's showing my age a little bit. That a guy that I covered when I started is getting his jersey raised to the rafters. But remember him as so much fun to watch, and obviously his NHL career is it was pretty wild as well. And but I remember him playing in junior, and he was just an absolute blast to watch live. And again, similar to Joe Thornton in some senses, just big body, guy that was really skilled at the junior level, and translated into a really long and productive pro career. And that night's going to be a lot of fun. And great that with London in town, that's been a bit of a rivalry over the years with the Greyhounds as well. So that's going to be a fun night overall, and I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
I would assume that one's going to be a sellout.
Yeah, I would hope so. If not, I'd be I hate to say this, but if not, I'd be pretty disappointed in the fans here, to be totally honest.
Yeah, for sure. But there's Brad Coccimiglio from the sports reporter for the Soo today, giving us some great insight on the Soo Greyhounds, and look forward to having him back on later in the season. We'll see where the Soo Greyhounds sort of shake out. But Brad, really appreciate your time, and thanks for all the great work you do, and being able to come on and give us a lot of insight of what's going up there in the Soo.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate you doing this, and look forward to jumping on again down the road.
Absolutely. So that's going to wrap it up for this correspondent check-in on the Armchair GM Sports Network and OHL Overtime. Thank you to JC Coutts for the Owen Sound attack insight, and as well here on part 2 and Brad Coccimiglio covering the Soo Greyhounds. Thank you to those that tuned in on our video version. Make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and smash that bell. And thank you to those that chose to listen to us on your favorite on-demand audio platform. For both my guests on today's show, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's it. We'll talk to you again very soon right here on OHL Overtime.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.